Ow. Oh, what? That's great. Is it just half my face? No, it's my whole face. Great. Woo!
All right.
Woo! I shouldn't yell into the microphone. Let me just do this again. Woo. It doesn't have the same intensity.
Oh, I can see outside.
Isn't it neat?
Get the shades up.
Maybe we should.
We should have a on the air sign now.
We should have had the Postal Service sales lady be part of our podcast today. That would have been fun.
Arizona is a wildly beautiful place, brimming with over 100 brewing companies. I'm Rob Fulmer, the Executive Director of the Arizona Craft Brewers Guild. I'm joined by Deputy Director Andrew Bauman. Together we cover the state, bringing you the best of what's happening at our breweries and beyond. Welcome to Arizona Beer Frontier.
Postal Service sales lady be part of our podcast today. That would have been fun.
Yeah, I was threatening to see if maybe.
Hey, so have you heard about the Postal Equity Act? Huh? Have you? What do you think about it?
I don't think she was actually an employee of the Postal Service. I think she was a third-party sales. That's what it seemed like to me. Because wouldn't she be wearing the uniform and stuff?
I mean, no. Not everyone has to wear a uniform.
Or just have the logo. I mean, like...
Perhaps, sure.
It says Andrew, who's got a logoed shirt, a logoed jacket, a logoed hat.
But that's me. Have you seen beer salespeople and what they wear?
Moving on.
Many, many times they don't have logos on their stuff. I mean, it amazes me, but I see it all the time. It's not necessary.
Yeah.
All right, fine.
I know.
Wow, that was actually quite a light and fun conversation. One of the nicest I've had today.
Yeah, we're in crunch time. It's Tuesday, and we've got tomorrow is Arizona Statehood Day, February 14th. It's Valentine's Day. We've got 3 hearings down at the Capitol, and it's Beer Week Eve.
It's 3 days. Tomorrow is 3 days before Strong Beer.
Right. It's Beer Week Eve. Although we have Beer Week events going on as we speak days ahead of the actual event.
I know. Why does everyone make fun of it being longer than 7 days, but they extend it to
I'm going to tell you this right now. This is going to
This is me poking Rob.
This is going to be a different organization that runs Arizona Beer Week. It will be primarily breweries, our organization, and it will involve many retailers and distributors and other business partners. And because of that, because it's a statewide event, I think it's fair to go back to focusing on different areas and different parts of the month. And so it will be a much longer event than a week because people down in Tucson want to come up here and enjoy themselves. And I think it's fair to the distributors down there that they get some focus because not all of them are statewide in the same way, right? So I think it's going to have to move that direction. Be 4 weeks, and just like we did during the pandemic, and that was wonderful. And the Convention and Visitors Bureaus warmly embraced that, and that's where hotel things happen for us. That's where different types of resources come into play. I don't want to just say money because I don't think we're dealing with money anymore in this post-apocalyptic world. Post-whatever. Post-pandemic.
Yeah. All the post-Bud Light explosion. What?
Right. No,
you can edit that.
Knowing that we are out of whatever, there was a soft landing to the recession or whatever you want to call it, but people are going to cling on to the idea of gas prices and inflation because it suits them politically. So, whatever. We're fine. Everything's fine. Hi, Andrew.
Everything's fine.
Andrew Bauman.
Hi, Rob.
I almost messed that up. So
I said hi, Rob. Is that
Yeah.
right, or is it hey, Rob?
Hey, Rob.
Oh well, it's my brain is really getting kind of scrambled. It's true.
I was up late last night and I had dreams about taxes. We sort of fought off a little bit of a thing yesterday, and I'm not going to name names. It's because it all worked out in the end, and I think somebody set the bat signal out and wanted to see if anyone was paying attention. There was a bill that we anticipated that was going to be talked about. We've faced it many, many times. It's always dropped at the last minute. And this time they did that, and we were ready for it. And then they did a strike everything amendment. So they took everything out of the bill and they rewrote everybody's tax code.
Every
Every
single spirits, beer, wine
right.
manufacturer, they wanted to
Right.
change everyone's taxes.
Right. And so it took a while for us to understand how the math worked. And once we understand how the math worked, it actually gave everyone the same tax rate, which sounds good in some levels, but we did the math, and for most of our members, it would be a tax increase. Now, that's going to kill the bill right there, because you need 2/3 of the majority of the legislative body to pass that kind of thing. So it all got pulled back. There was a lot of even the distributors were like, that's an inordinate amount of tax rates.
Well, yeah. The thing about the thing is, it was a very complicated on how they were going to tax each product. It was based on the amount of alcohol in the package. So if you look at a 12-ounce can, that's not 12 ounces of alcohol. That's 5% of 12 ounces or 7% of 12 ounces.
Right. Or 7.1.
And
or
depending on
7.2.
what those numbers are, this can would be taxed differently depending on the strength of the beer.
Right.
And that's bonkers. If you think about a distributor who's got 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 SKUs in their house,
Right.
every single one of them would be subject to different taxes.
And they all, federally, the ABV can vary by 3 points, right?
0.3.
Yeah, 0.3. Anyway, so that I mean, there's no accounting for what that means. Like,
It would be impossible for breweries to comply accurately with that law.
and that's just in the package market. So we're talking about draft. You don't have to hit a target per se. You just have to list what it is. So do you recall Dark Sky? They did 100 batches of beer that didn't repeat. And I think they did that for 2 years.
Yeah.
So that, somewhere south of 200, but maybe north of 70 would be the possible number of tax rates that they
All
could have.
different tax rates on those beers. That's craziness.
Right. So it's a simple idea, but it's very complicated. And apart from that, that's just the mechanics of the tax. There are other things that are assumed in the tax rates. There is a whole legislative scheme that's designed to limit consumption. Whether you agree with that or not, that is how the federal government has based this from time immemorial. They taxed spirits at a higher rate under the thought that that would push people towards lower strength products.
Now, this unified tax rate that they were talking about would apply to spirits, and there's a variation in the amount of spirits in each bottle. Like, this brand is 80 proof, this brand is 92 proof.
Right.
So those would have varying tax rates as well. But overall, it would cut their tax rates in half.
Right.
And wine, same thing, cut their tax rates in half.
Yeah, I don't know about our Arizona wineries because there's assumptions made about average strength of those products. And it's really hard for me to understand what the average strength of all of our members' products is, but it's definitely higher than 5%, which is where the sweet spot for that tax seemed to lie. So I don't want to belabor the point because we have a lot to talk about. There's not going to be a voting component. This bill is essentially tabled, and there are going to be discussions about it next year. But there are other considerations that are tied to tax rate. Some of them involving distribution, franchise law, what products you can make. So if we're to assume that these are to be considered equivalent products for that, there are are dozens of issues where rights are based on that assumption. So, at a very simple level, if Arizona is signaling that these are equivalent products, then our brewery should be able to make these products, sell these products. So I just think that's a non-starter, but maybe not. There is definitely an effort on our small producers to unify the tribes and make things easier, and especially to address niche products like kombucha, cider, mead. I think
Sake?
I think wine suffers in this RTD situation as well because they don't have a popular alternative at the lower strength area. That might open some things up. I don't know. But beer has a hard limit as to how much you can premiumize it based on ABV. I don't know, 21%, maybe 18. But those products, those are products that were partially distilled. We believe, right? The
I don't know. Sam
Brewdog,
Adams says that
the stuffed stoat
is a straight beer.
Yeah, and it's what percent?
I don't know how that can 25.
Yeah, okay. So
I don't know how that's possible.
evaporation.
But then that's considered. Well, I don't know, man.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know, man. I just work here.
So that's going on. We're going to have a hearing for the hemp bill, which we've kind of belabored that point a little bit. We have a bill to allow an exemption for packaged products at festivals. For the same reason why the health department shouldn't inspect people as they casually go and buy a soda from a soda machine. It's in a package. It's already gone through all of the
quality assurance stuff that
so,
it has to.
Right. They're not accosting people in Circle K parking lots when they open up their soda in the parking lot. It's the same thing. We're pouring out of these packages that could, in another life could have been put directly on the shelf and people would open them without washing them, just put them right in their mouth,
This is
put them right in their face.
So referring to the health department inspecting festivals.
So, for peek behind the curtains on that, in some locales, they want to permit every single beer tent and permit them separately. And especially as we have this Series 16s where breweries can go pop up a tent and get a permit and sell both, to the public for on-site consumption and sell to go, to burden them with, I don't know, somewhere $25 to $150 worth of permitting.
Every single time they want to do that?
Yeah.
Every single time that they show up to a fundraiser for a nonprofit?
Right.
Charge them $150?
Right.
It's not going to work. We have 170 plus suppliers that are going to be working with us at Arizona Strong. And can you imagine that? Can you imagine $17,000 in fees just to say I was there?
Right. Right. I can't imagine filling out that many. I mean, that would transfer to us. You know that in a heartbeat.
Absolutely. We'd have to do all the paperwork and we'd have to pay all the fees, and that would come out of the bottom line. And that's a lot of money.
Yeah. Just the labor. Just filling that all out, driving them down, all that stuff. So that's what's going on. We'll know the answer when this is broadcast. We'll know the answer to what happened, but I anticipate a good day, but we'll see. We'll see.
So are we going to talk more about the other things we've done in the last 10 years legislatively or no?
Well, yeah.
Is that too much for today?
No. Well, no, it's good. So I just want to underscore the, by the way, Channel 12 is featuring Arizona Beer Week, and I saw the teasers for it. I recorded it because I had math dreams and I couldn't get up early this morning. That says these events benefit and promote Arizona breweries. So I'm hoping you did the interview. We're hoping that they break that out into several segments. We don't know. If you saw it this morning, hopefully there's some more to it. But we're really trying to sell the idea that we haven't really stepped on the gas pedal on before, is that Arizona Strong Beer Festival funds all the things that we talk about from legislation to promoting breweries to maybe getting back to conferences again this year, to educating our breweries, to bringing them together for technical committees, our competition, sending you and I to DC to lobby on behalf of national things, to represent our products at the Great American Beer Festival, to also do that for World Beer Cup, all that stuff. We pay for the shipping of World Beer Cup entries, Great American Beer Festival entries. We're just there as a resource. And by buying a ticket to that festival and attending that festival, you support that. You assist the breweries in that expense of this office and both our manpower, the expertise of people like Camila, to put us in meetings with distributors and retailers so that when we have an issue like last night, I was texting with various industry people, close to midnight, which is kind of part and parcel of what we do, but it's a little bit weird when somebody who's in charge of the distributors is up at that late hour, asking questions and stepping through this so that we have a much more enjoyable Valentine's Day at the Capitol.
That's what I'm looking forward to.
So this year on our 2024 agenda, we're running out of funds from last year, like effectively this month. So we need a good showing at Strong Beer. It's going to be 74, 75 degrees, partially cloudy. I don't think I could ask for better weather. I got a rule of thumb about that, and I was right on. It will be 72 degrees at some point during that festival. But this year, we are fighting against taxes that hurt our industry. In this case, even if it was an ideal sort of situation without any other things going on, that's a lot of math. And it took us a couple hours to sort of feel comfortable about it. And we could go in that meeting and they could say, no, it's completely different. We also are paving the way for this hemp discussion. And I think it's an important one, even if we don't get into manufacturing it as breweries. Just the ability to understand how this is going to interface with us in the liquor industry, serving people to the public. We brought in the Restaurant Association, and now I don't know if I told you this, Arizona Licensed Beverage Association is on board for this.
Whoa, that's huge.
So just understanding how THC, is occupying people's attention and in their systems when they are in our places. We know this. So we'd like to have the opportunity to offer something of lower strength that slows people down. And I can understand when you came in, have an idea of your demeanor, and when I serve you, I know exactly what I served you when it comes to that.
I heard that you tried some of these hemp beverages.
I did have one. I ordered one through the mail. I'm not even going to put it on camera because I Googled it. It was black cherry. It had 5 milligrams in one of these 10-ounce cans. I watched the Super Bowl. I paced myself. It took about an hour and a half for me to finish it because I was actually working on my taxes while I watched the Super Bowl, because that's something that Brenda and I have done the last 2 years when we're not really interested in rooting for anyone in particular. But I was able to do, figure out my gas mileage or my mileage for tax purposes while watching the game. And I felt it a little bit. So to me, if I was in public watching this game or at somebody's house, I would have preferred that same beverage with maybe 1 milligram. So maybe I could have 2. I could be a little more sociable. Also, I was just sitting there. So like, as one does with THC, you kind of get in your head a little bit when you're just sedentary. But when I got up to fix myself a sandwich or whatever, kind of faded a little bit. But it was, I took the bullet for y'all. No, it was just to understand how the sensation is different from drinking beer and other
Sure.
products. So you have not had, did you have your,
Yeah, I've been partaking in my hemp THC gummies as my nighttime sleeping, and it works great.
right. Oh,
I mean, I actually think it works better than the other products that I've had from dispensaries, honestly.
so I should mention, I got this in the mail. All I had to say was I was 18. I checked a box.
You got yours on UPS, right?
Yeah, United Parcel Service,
Yeah.
unmarked box, no signature. I was like, oh, what is this? I picked it up like, oh, I thought I was wondering if this was ever going to come because I don't even think I got a notification that, it's on the way, that kind of thing. So I don't want to identify the product because this is the point. The point of this hemp bill is to, and this is a new thought, is if you have local businesses interested in buying and selling and manufacturing these products, you're going to get a group of people who are going to be stakeholders that will assist agencies in making sure that if we have standards for labeling in Arizona, because the federal government doesn't, that these things will be followed. So the first thing I would do is say to the AG, hey, we have a law. This is happening. How can we reach out and make sure these people understand that you have to change your label, you have to do this age gating thing. That's one of the things that a group like that would do. If it is killed as a bill by the dispensaries, I don't think they're really going to have that sensibility. And again, because these things will be experienced by individuals in our bars and restaurants, I think that public component is really important in terms of educating people who shouldn't try these products. One of the server instructions is going to have to be, are you a member of the military? Do you have a CDL? Do you have any other reason not to? This has that in that. So please don't have that here if that's the case. Anyway.
My Facebook feed is now full of hemp-based THC products, and I went ahead and bought one during the Super Bowl. It had no age questions at all.
Yeah.
No check mark, no yes, no nothing. Just here's a product. Put in your credit card. Thank you.
Right.
Dicey. I hope I'm getting good stuff.
So I mentioned the permits for festivals. Yes, I did.
Yep.
Okay. The other one that we sort of fought behind the scenes on were we talked about it. The extension of timelines for permits, and I don't want to belabor that point because I think moving forward, everyone's moving in good faith on both the tax issue and this extension of premise issue. I don't harbor any ill will. I think we're moving forward, and I talked to the bill sponsor, Representative Gress, so we're full steam ahead on that. But those are the negotiations that happen all the time, and we work with people like Gary Ellum from the Distillers Guild, and we work with the folks at the Wine Growers Association, and I'm told that they're holding some cards on some things, so we'll see. Like Gary has been very good at getting some of these things done, and all of the health code stuff that plagues wineries and distilleries in particular, but also us. He's single-handedly turned the corner on that, and it would have been overlooked by us for a long time that we could also get this exemption for festivals, and it's much needed, and you don't have breweries that have the time to really have those relationships where we just call each other up about this stuff. So he cannot testify tomorrow, so I'm going to take over talking about that bill. So that's good. So that's what we did. That's what we're doing this
What's
year.
going on this year? Yeah.
Right. I don't know. Should we go all the way back to the beginning and work our way up, or?
I don't think we have time for that.
Okay, that's fine. What do we want to talk about then? Some of this stuff is for us specifically, but a lot of it's for the general public, for sure, and some of it's for all license holders, right?
Yeah. I mean, all of it's for all license holders because anyone who holds a license is subject to the same rules.
Right.
So it could be breweries, it could be retailers. So yeah, we have a lot of things on there, but I don't think we have time today.
Okay. It's fair enough.
I know. I asked you to do it, but
what do we have? Well, let me just mention this because
Great.
this is overlooked. We did modernize the definition of beer so that we could create things like seltzer, but also it protected things like barrel-aged beers, which weren't listed.
any ingredients non-drinkable
Yeah. Fruit beer, believe it or not,
wasn't protected until we changed the law.
because in some states they were saying, well, if you're adding any fruit, then you need a winery license too. And the state not understanding that the state wouldn't allow us to do that. But now we can because we can alternate proprietorship. But that's beside the
But that wouldn't even be an alternating proprietorship
No,
situation.
I know.
It's crazy.
I know. It would be nice if we could get all our heads together and have this license where we could do all those things. In other words, we're talking a lot about that, but that's why having a discussion about the tax rates in a larger environment with more legislators is going to work in our favor because we want to tell that story about how this is super complicated. And again, if we invented alcohol today, it wouldn't be as complicated. All these laws that separate and allow some businesses to have high markup products with less volume, having a whole set of laws versus these other products, that all kind of is up for discussion if we're talking about tax rates. So,
Yeah. Oh, that scares me because then as far as tax rates go, if you're making something called beer, you have one tax rate. And if we have a
Right.
unified license, I guess it would come down to the ingredients. Yikes.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's worth talking about because it's worth educating everybody about, right? And then we'd have to call Arizona Strong Beer Festival the Arizona taxed slightly more than your normal products festival. I don't know.
So about Arizona Strong Beer Festival, ticket sales are going great. We have 170 plus breweries, wineries, distilleries who are going to be sharing their products.
Right.
We've got 13 different food trucks.
Right.
We've got a dunk tank. We've
Right.
got apple bobbing. We've got the wrestling ring. We've got DJs. We've got a couple of Oktoberfest booths. We've got Strongman hit the sledgehammer bell thing that Walter Station did. They're doing that again.
Right. I don't know what to call that.
A high striker.
Is that
That's
what
it's called?
Okay.
Yeah, we've got a lot. We've got the NA Bev Trail. So we're going to have a sign up front that says, if you're looking for non-alc bevs,
Right.
look for these pinwheels. I don't know. It was hard to figure out something that was going to be recognizable easily while also not costing $20 for one day
Right.
times 20.
Okay.
But yeah, we have 20 different non-alc bevs that are going to be there.
Great.
Yeah.
I'm going to have some of those.
What's that?
I'm going to have some of those.
Yeah, me too.
Because as we talk about these hemp beverages, there's a crossover between non-alcoholic because you have to have a non-alcoholic base.
Food safe, HACCP
so-
plan, all the stuff.
Yeah, I know. So it's, I'm looking forward to that a lot,
Cool.
believe it or not.
What are you doing for Arizona Beer Week, Rob?
Well, tonight we're actually going to something to celebrate Arizona's birthday on the 13th. It's Arizona's Talking. It's a political policy discourse thing. It's put on by a friend of mine, Carlos Alfaro, who invited me to do a prohibition talk years ago at then Helio Basin
Cool.
Brewery. I think it was one among his first things, and now he is putting on these things with, Adrian Fontes and 5 or 6 legislators and people from the water policy and people so I don't know. This is probably going to just be more of a celebration. I don't know if there's any speakers and stuff, but I wanted to connect with him. So we're doing that tonight. You know, by the time anyone hears this, there are things tonight. So I don't know. Maybe we'll do that. Tomorrow is Valentine's Day, so it kind of muddies the waters. I know there's a couple industry things that usually happen. There was like either a lip syncing contest that Billy McGovern put on. Then she was other breweries, but now she's with Shiner. I don't know if she's doing that this year, or they do the drawing game. You know, whatever the
Pictionary.
Pictionary. There you go. So kind of look for that. There is a Quail Night Before Strong Beer Fest thing happening at the Attic. That's on Friday. We have our baseball thing, so I try to just check in over there and then go to our baseball game. So obviously strong beer.
What? Oh, our event on Friday night for wristband pickup.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. That's
There is the brewery and donuts at Hungry Monk on Friday morning.
Is that Friday morning?
Yep.
For sure? Mm-hmm. Okay.
There is...
So it's going to be the brewery, though. So it's going to be
the
Black
brewery.
Tuesday and donuts.
Yes.
They may also have Hop Slam, or no?
I can't say. I think what happened is the Hop Slam schedule changed when they got bought, and so Hop Slam wasn't... It
Right.
used to get released in the beginning of
It's
February.
out there more non-schedule-y.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's out there. Okay.
And then there was...
There was a crossover year where they were both available at the same time, though. I do remember that. At that particular event. At Hungry Monk. In your pajamas.
Yeah. There is also the Oregon Trail.
Yeah.
I like that event.
Yeah.
Where you play a version of Oregon Trail, but they have basically a little mini beer fest
Right.
where different
Taproom 120.
different suppliers come out and put up a little
Right.
table and give you whatever. You roll the dice and you get
Right.
the thing on the game.
Sunday, I think there's usually a Santan bike ride. I'm going to try to intercept that. Monday
I
is
think
an
that's on the 25th.
okay at the end.
Yeah.
Okay, but Ska used to do something in Tempe-ish, Scottsdale, but I don't know if that's going on. I'll have to look.
I know
all
that-
these things are on azbeerweek.com or arizonabeerweek.com.
I know that the Main Ingredient is doing some Beer Week events.
Right.
So that's a thing. I know that on the 24th, we've got the Tucson Beer Crawl.
We do. And the next day at Tap and Bottle, they're doing a brunch,
Yes.
which is Sunday, which is outside of the bounds of Arizona Beer Week. But as long as we're both here, we can sort of sign off on that. We can bless that. I mean, like more events, more days.
That Sunday is part of Beer Week.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, it's sometimes.
It used to not be like the
Yeah.
first time it got expanded. It was Saturday to Saturday.
Right. And then Sunday.
And then it went to Thursday and then Sunday
And
got
then on
grabbed.
some years, President's Day was the Monday.
Ah.
And one of the people who complains the most about how long Arizona Beer Week is consistently scheduled something on that day. I don't get it. It's like, help me help myself. I don't know. Stop me from, I don't know. So
We've got a bunch of events.
I'm going to be in Flagstaff at the end of Beer Week on that Friday. It's called the ABV Dinner. It's Arizona Breweries and Veterans. It's going to be at the Elks Lodge, my Elks Lodge. I think there's like, I don't know, a dozen courses and pairings, swag to be raffled off. It's probably sold out by now. Because like
Cool.
when I was up there for a couple weeks ago for the festival that happens at the Marquee there, not the Marquee, Orpheum.
Mile High.
No, it's in the winter. It's
I don't know. I never been to that one, but yes. They just moved it to Orpheum from somewhere else.
yeah, I used to be in the High Country Conference Center. Yeah. Anyway, when I was up there, they said they only had 30 tickets left. So that was a couple weeks ago. So it's probably sold out. It's a kind of a Flagstaff thing. If it's probably not even on our website, unfortunately, but people in the know. So now you know. So now you can camp out on it next year. Official semi brother-in-law of the director here, Tom Allen, found the tickets right away. So
they're available.
Yeah.
They were available.
right. So I'm doing that. Will I be able to come from that event? Get up really early in the morning and drive down to Tucson for brunch on Sunday. I haven't been down at Tucson for a beer week in a little bit, and I used to start every Thursday, but now that I have obligations with the Capitol a lot, it's really tough to schedule that. So I'd like to get back to where I started in Southern Arizona, and this would having a much wider palette of days would help this. And actually, Rebecca from Tap and Bottle is always about this. She's like, I really want to take part in things going on in the rest of the state, but I can't.
Mm-hmm.
And they do a great job at all of their locations in supporting this.
Ooh,
So
their programming is huge.
yeah. So I used to be of the mind, and I haven't been able to, substantiate that because I haven't been down there, but like Tucson was probably the best place to be for Arizona Beer Week because of the many breweries and the proximity to each other. And, it's, if I live there, I might feel differently, but it is, excuse me, it is a fun thing to do if you're here in Phoenix to go down there for it. So I hope that the events are there. I think probably so. So that would be my recommendation for anyone listening. If you have some days off to go down there, then do it.
Pueblo Vita's doing some events.
Yeah.
Barrio's got some stuff lined up. I think 1912's got a thing. Yeah, there's definitely events in Tucson. Flagstaff, Beaver Street, and Lumberyard have things on the calendar already. Fun.
Yeah. So
I can see how it'd be nice if it was like divided up regionally.
Yeah.
I know we're just going to have to, why do we have to fight people? We're not forcing them to do anything.
No.
But if we say Arizona Beer Week for 3 weeks, what
Yeah.
it's going to be like.
I was just over at 100 Mile to talk to Sue, and she was very happy, proud that she's doing, over the 10 days, like 6 or 7 things. I'm like, good for you. And I didn't want to say, well, next year I'll say, maybe just do 1 or 2 and like let your staff enjoy the rest of Arizona Beer Week by going to some of these events. But we'll see.
I know they have Run Around the Lake.
I don't know what
Their second year doing that.
Yeah. She said she just uploaded them like the day
Yeah.
before, so I haven't had a chance to look. And when I got in the office, I tried to go through a couple days, and I'm like, oh, well, by the time we broadcast this, a lot of the stuff I would talk about is already going to be come and gone. But like, it would be helpful because it is, although it is a pain in the ass right now, this year in particular, and it is nice when we run bills to have all these forums to talk to people about them. So that would be helpful to have a little bit of run up to it before Strong. So it is helpful to have Arizona Beer Week while February is when bills have a deadline to be heard. We're going to be coming up on crossover week where things have to be voted on in their individual originating body, and they can then cross over to if they're to the House, they go to the Senate, and vice versa. There's a deadline for that. We're right in the heart of it. So having social settings to be a backdrop for all that is huge.
Yeah.
So we would never probably want to move that out of this month, even though it's could be hell week for you and I. And by the way, thank you for taking over all that stuff when I'm, down at the Capitol. It's sometimes more effective for me to sit in either the House or Senate balcony and lounge area and just work there and casually talk to legislators as they walk by, or kind of snoop on other conversations.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, there's a lot of people down there right now, and those are the kind of relationships that you have to make to be effective. True fact.
yeah. So, I don't know what. Oh,
That was- yeah.
Monday.
Oh,
Because this is going out.
Oh, Monday.
Monday we have Well, during the day we have our industry disc thing, but in the evening at Arizona Wilderness, downtown Phoenix, there will be a hemp industry meet and greet networking. So hopefully we'll get some breweries there. Arizona Wilderness is graciously hosting. It's a ticketed event. You buy the ticket and we'll take care of a couple of beers with that cost. But it is a fundraiser, not necessarily for us. This is out of our budget per se, like having this extra bill to run without having a lot of planning. But the hemp industry has been doing this under their own steam for 2 years, 3 years, and it's a fundraiser for them, and I want to support that. They have introduced a bill and created relationships that they invited us into. That no matter how the direction the bill goes, it's all been very valuable experience that we will be able to translate into our members' benefit somehow. So that is going on. We hope to get some legislators there. There are people coming from the Hemp Beverage Alliance, which is a national organization, to come down here to support. What else?
The Hemp Beverage Alliance.
Yeah. If you are in the industry, I have some passes. You need to contact me, and you'll know how to contact me. I'm not going to give everyone my email address or anything like that. So if you're listening, you want to attend, and you're in the industry, I can comp you the ticket.
Don't drop your request in the comments. That would not be good.
Yeah.
We'll never see it.
There's also a donation page, and the way to get to that site, it's on Eventbrite. But if you go to Arizona Beer Week and you look for Monday events, you'll see it. It's an orange banner. You'll be able to find it. Please sign up there. Again, if you're in the industry, we can figure that out. There is a donation page, so even if I comp you the tickets, if you want to throw a couple bucks their way, that'd be great. I think it's like $30 for 2 tickets, which would be 4 beers. We're really doing this on a shoestring. The most important thing is to be able to talk to the individual I talked about, understand what the future of hemp might be for all of our folks. And so hope the Restaurant Association is going to be there. I know that a couple distributors are going to be there. Some reps will be there because they're all interested to find out what the future holds in this. And it's.
Do you think the opposition is going to be there at all?
I hope so, because I'm going to tell you what. When we pass this bill, we're going to be talking about different law changes every year moving forward. And there is an opportunity to sort of unify the tribes. I don't want them to forever have an adversarial relationship with us. There are things that they subjected themselves to in the passage of the bill. And again, I'm very thankful they have passed legalized marijuana so that my friends, your friends, aren't criminalized for behavior that's been acceptable for decades. The folks, there's a lot of people signed in against our bill, and they're all folks that work in that industry on the hourly basis or at the low end. But look, I'm not going to apologize to the guys that have super big money and are just throwing it around. I mean, like, you literally see them acting like the worst part of our alcohol industry in terms of, thinking they can walk around and just throw money around and shut bills down. And it's not so prevalent in our state in Arizona with that, but like we talked this morning about folks in other states. In Tennessee, there's a bill being introduced to remove beer from cold storage and put it in warm storage.
From cold displays. So you could never buy cold beer at a store, convenience store, gas station, nothing.
Right. I was like, oh, well, if that's the case, then all spirits should be warm to 180 degrees so that no one has the...
So you can't drink it when you're in the car.
Yes. Yeah.
You
Because
have to have it
it's
warm.
just so that people don't drink it in the car. I'm like, I think this is a spirits play. I really think this is a way for spirits to say, we're going to take up some more of your space now. Because they're trying to get in the cold set.
Yeah. Imagine if beer couldn't be in a cold set and you have all these RTD and seltzer, wine-based seltzer options.
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
What was
And they'd be like, whoa, we're not beer though.
Yeah.
Let our stuff be cold. We're not beer.
I didn't. Maybe I'm not getting this right, but there were legislators complaining to a guild director in a southern state saying, "Well, how come you haven't assisted getting these breweries placed at distributors?"
Yeah,
like,
so-
isn't that a service you guys provide? I'm like, holy cow!
That was the lobbyist for the wholesalers.
Oh,
That said that to him.
oh yeah.
Yeah, that's he said, hey, if your distributors have any if your suppliers have any kind of problem finding a distributor, just give us a call. We'll help smooth it out. What? Why are these two private businesses not talking to each other? They have to go through
The
two
legislature.
different nonprofit trade organizations to get this business done?
Yeah.
Wild.
So, if you've got questions about how this all works, come down to the thing at Arizona Willer. So we'll talk more about anything
All
you
that
want to know.
stuff. Sure.
And how, as much as we struggle, and last night was a low moment, wondering how this is all going to work out. And then, being assured that we got a plan to combat this. I had to wave off the Brewers Association from flying down today. I said, hey, I think we got it solved, but if we need you, it's better to have you in the bullpen at a time that we can schedule. All that's really cool. So our state, as much as we complain about it, is pretty relatively manageable for an organization like us to be effective. I just really don't think that's the case everywhere.
Yeah, but as last night showed, you have to have your eye on the ball all the time. Because
Yeah.
they snuck that thing in. They just snuck it right in. If we weren't watching, that would have just gone right through.
Yeah.
I mean, potentially. Nothing's ever just that easy. But
Right. No, but I mean, it could have easily, we would have not had an opportunity to address the issue because it might have just been sent right to the floor, and we would have to wait till it crossed over and attack it in the Senate at that point. And who knows, right? If you're late in the day on when it's scheduled, they're going to say, okay, we got, you just get 3 speakers. You have 2 minutes aside.
yeah.
2 minutes a
Oh,
speaker.
it's terrible.
Yeah. And
Because they start with the Bills, with the Bill sponsor.
yeah,
They talk.
right.
And then the opposition talks. And then people that are for it get to talk.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that end up with the time limits. It's amazing.
Yeah. So, I can't even explain the context because you have no idea if any of the people on the committee have any experience with this at all. So anyway,
Hey.
we should wrap this up.
We should.
I'm going to drink a beer. How's that?
Yeah. You have Fate Brewing Company's local lager there. Nice.
I do.
We did have some more discussions about the evening in Prague dinner. So that's moving forward. I don't think we talked about that on our last one, did we?
Oh, we got time on that.
Anyway, I know, but
Yeah.
that's going to be a fun event with a bunch of Czech style beers brewed by Arizona breweries and Czech beers made in Czech and Czechia. And we're going to have a menu specifically tailored to the event. So
Yeah.
look forward to more info on that as it comes up.
Oh, sorry. I have a weird. I gotta go.
All right, we'll go. Okay, hey, thanks. Remember, it's not a podcast about beer, it's a beer podcast.
No, it's not a beer podcast. It's a podcast.
That's what I said.
Beer. I said the opposite.
I said the opposite. Beer, sometimes the beer finds you.
Yeah,
I didn't get that one wrong.
right. More legislation than you care to know. All right. Thank you. Out.